He thought she was on a yoga retreat. What he found at the hotel room door left him shattered. I opened the hotel room door and froze. She smiled like a woman on vacation, not like someone caught red-handed. I suppose that's what stung the most, the ease, the comfort. As if I were the intrusion, not the husband. You don't plan for betrayal. You don't pencil it in between business calls or remind yourself to pick up the dry cleaning and also confront the collapse of your marriage. It happens like a sneeze, abrupt, uncontrollable, and strangely satisfying once it's over. I wasn't supposed to know about the hotel. That much was clear. Maplewood Inn was the kind of place couples went to when they didn't want to be seen. Not seedy. No, it had taste. That's what made it worse. Taste, class, discretion. Beige walls with tasteful art. Dim lighting. A front desk clerk who didn't blink when I gave her name. Miss Elaine Barker? He asked, checking the screen. Ah, yes, she checked in this morning. Room 214. He didn't ask who I was. Just handed me the spare key card and nodded like he'd done it before. Maybe he had. Maybe there were other husbands and wives with that same blank, almost polite rage I carried into the elevator. Elaine and I had been married 23 years. That's longer than most prison sentences. We'd raised a daughter, buried 2 parents, fought over taxes, made up over wine, and redecorated the kitchen twice. I thought we were solid. Not perfect, but who is? A few weeks ago, something shifted. She started smiling at her phone too much. Not in the friendly, look at this cat video kind of way, but the tight-lipped, secretive smile of someone trying not to smile. I asked if she was seeing someone. She laughed, God, the way she laughed. Like I'd said something charmingly paranoid. No, Stephen. Jesus. When would I even have the time? She made time. Between yoga and work, between dinner and dishes. She carved out hours like a surgeon. Surgical lies. Precise alibis. I hired a private investigator. I didn't want to. It felt dirty, paranoid, something desperate men do in movies. But I couldn't sleep. I needed confirmation or closure, either would do. His name was Greg. Ex-cop, smelled like cigars and certainty. Took him less than 5 days. Hotel check-ins, blurred photos, a grainy shot of Elaine kissing a man in the parking lot of a Thai restaurant. That him? Greg asked, passing me the file. I didn't answer. I just looked at the photo and felt something inside me lock into place. It wasn't grief. Not yet. It was logistics. A quiet decision. This ends on my terms. Which brings us to room 214. I stood outside for a minute, hand on the keycard, heart jackhammering like I was about to defuse a bomb. I brought the divorce papers with me, tucked neatly into a manila envelope. I had them drawn up 3 days ago. Clean, clear, no contest. I even waived alimony. I didn't want her money. I wanted her gone. When I opened the door, I expected shock. Maybe tears. Maybe a panicked scramble of sheets and apologies. But what I got was a scene so mundane it felt surreal. She was sitting on the edge of the bed, fully dressed, sipping white wine from a plastic cup. She looked up, blinked once, and said, Stephen. Just like that. Like I'd wandered into the wrong room. There was no man in sight. But the second glass of wine on the dresser and the rumpled sheets told the truth better than any photograph could. Hi, Elaine, I said, stepping in and letting the door click shut behind me. She stood up slowly, as if trying to decide whether to scream or laugh. What are you doing here? I held up the envelope. Delivering mail. She frowned, took a step forward, then back again. Is this some kind of joke? No. It's a reckoning. She looked at the envelope as if it might bite her. Stephen, whatever you think. I don't think. I know. I've got photos, timestamps, credit card receipts. You're thorough, but not perfect. Silence stretched between us like wire. She finally sat down again, her fingers tight around the wine cup. I didn't mean for it to happen, she said. That made me laugh. Actually laugh. I hadn't planned that, but it bubbled out of me like soda. Of course not. People accidentally check into hotels and fall onto each other. She didn't appreciate the sarcasm. But sarcasm is all I had left between me and whatever sobbing wreckage lay beneath. Who is he? I asked. She didn't answer. Does he know you're married? Still nothing. Did you tell him I was dead, or just boring? She finally looked at me. Not with guilt. With pity. That stung worse than rage. You stopped seeing me, Stephen, she said, quietly. That's when I realized the real betrayal wasn't the affair. It was how calmly she'd rewritten the story. How neatly she'd folded me out of her narrative, like an old photograph pushed to the back of a drawer. I dropped the envelope on the nightstand. Sign it. I won't ask twice. She picked it up, skimmed the first page. You already filed? I will, tomorrow. Why come here? To see your face when it happened. That landed. For the first time, something cracked in her. Not tears, not yet, but the veneer of control slipped. She looked down, then away. He's not coming back. We fought this morning. I almost smiled. Almost. Then you've got the room to yourself, I said, turning for the door. Stephen, wait. I paused. Not out of hope, but curiosity. She stood there, papers in hand, like a woman realizing the fairy tale had expired. You really want to end it like this? I didn't turn around. I'm not ending anything. You did. And with that, I left. I wish I could say I left the hotel with the satisfaction of a man who took back control. Slammed the car door, cranked up the radio, drove into a cleaner future with the weight of her betrayal lifting off my shoulders like steam. I wish I could say that. But wishes are for children and cowards. The truth is, I sat in the parking lot for nearly 20 minutes, engine off, hands still clenched around a steering wheel that didn't know which direction to point. Across the lot, a couple walked out of the lobby, laughing. She touched his shoulder, he kissed her temple. They looked maybe 40, maybe newly in love, maybe in the stage where secrets still felt romantic. I watched them until they disappeared behind a silver Camry. I didn't cry. That would have been easier, cleaner. Instead, I felt something colder, like a slow leak in a tire, a hiss of air I couldn't stop. What do you do when the person you built your world around redraws the borders and leaves you out? You make lists. At home, I sat at the kitchen table and made one. Left column, things that were mine. Right column, things I'd let go. Mine. The lake house, thank God it was in my name. The blue recliner she hated. Our daughter, Carly, at least her affection, though that's negotiable now. The jazz records. Hers. The bedroom decor. The French press. The Christmas ornaments from her mother. My trust. I stared at that last line for a long time. My trust. Funny how easy it is to give, how hard it is to get back. Like air in a balloon, you never realize how much of it you had until it bursts and leaves you choking on silence. Elaine texted me that night. I read the papers. Is this really what you want? I didn't answer. Not because I didn't have a response, but because nothing I typed felt real enough. I kept deleting drafts. What I want doesn't matter anymore. Did what you want include destroying 23 years? Yes. I left it blank. Let her stew in the same empty space I'd lived in for weeks. The next morning, Carly called. Dad? Hey, sweetie. Mom told me about the divorce. Are you okay? No, I'm managing. She didn't tell me why. I mean, I have guesses. You've both been weird lately. I considered telling her the truth. Not the graphic details, but enough. She was 21, a junior in college, studying psychology. She'd appreciate honesty, or at least think she would. Instead, I said, sometimes people grow apart. The silence on the line told me she didn't buy it. Did she do something? Carly asked carefully. I didn't answer. Let her draw her own conclusions. I wasn't ready to smear Elaine. Not yet. Not until I could do it without sounding bitter. A few days passed. The paperwork sat untouched. Elaine hadn't signed yet. She hadn't called either. I found that infuriating and absurdly on brand. She cheats, I expose her. I walk away, and now I'm left waiting on her signature like a man hoping for parole. On Thursday, Greg, the PI, called. You want me to keep following her? He asked. No, I said. That chapter's closed. But it wasn't. Not really. Because the worst kind of betrayal is the kind that asks you to rethink everything. And I found myself retracing. Not just the affair, but the slow erosion. It wasn't sudden. It never is. Affairs are just symptoms. The real sickness started long ago. I remembered the night she came home late from that work conference in Detroit, flushed and full of apologies about delayed flights and bad catering. I remembered how she barely touched me in bed after that. I remembered the Christmas she gave me a Kindle after I'd told her I hated reading off screens. The distant look during dinner parties. The forced laughter when we watched our wedding video on our 20th anniversary. Maybe she'd already left me. Quietly. Piece by piece. Long before the hotel. And what about me? I wasn't innocent. I'd grown predictable. I planned things too much, made spreadsheets for vacations, forgot anniversaries twice in a row. I said I loved her, but I stopped showing it. Maybe part of me had checked out too. Still, I didn't cheat. I didn't lie. The next week, I got an envelope in the mail. Elaine's handwriting. Inside were the signed divorce papers and a note. I don't expect forgiveness. I just wanted to say, you were right. He was never worth losing you. I laughed, not because it was funny, but because it was so perfectly, absurdly Elaine. The man has a name, a history, a face. But to her, he was already past tense. He was never worth losing you. Like he'd evaporated into a mistake she could sweep under the rug. But the thing is, she did lose me. I took the signed papers, drove down to the county clerk's office, and filed them. Simple, clean, legal. On the way home, I stopped by the lake house. First time in months. The water was still, dark blue and humming with silence. I sat on the porch and stared at the dock we built together one summer when we still believed in forever. I lit a cigar, one of the good ones I kept hidden from her, and let the smoke curl around my bitterness. A bird landed on the railing, looked at me like it expected something profound. All I could think was, so this is what starting over feels like. Cold, quiet, and late. The lake house never felt this quiet before. Silence used to mean peace, her on the hammock with a book, me pretending to fix the grill while actually just sipping beer and watching the clouds bruise into sunset. Now, the same silence felt like a punishment. Heavy, dense, like I was being crushed under the weight of everything unsaid. I stayed 2 nights, alone. The first, I dreamed of her laughing in that hotel room, not with me, but at me. Second night, no dreams, just the kind of sleep that feels like death's waiting room. No dreams, no rest, just pause. Then came the email. Subject line, sorry to intrude. This concerns Elaine. No name. No context. Just a digital envelope dangling in my inbox like bait. I almost deleted it. But curiosity is a louder voice than pride. The sender was a man named Colin Myers. His message was brief, but clinical in tone. I was recently involved with your wife. She told me you were separated. I found out otherwise after she ended things. I just wanted to say I didn't know, and I'm sorry. I stared at the screen, blinking. The affair had a name. A man. A keyboard. Grammar. I reread the email 3 times, like if I stared long enough, it might say something different. I should have felt vindicated. Instead, I felt like someone had reopened a wound I hadn't finished stitching. I replied, "Don't contact me again." He did anyway. A week later, another email. This one longer, less composed. "I just need you to know, it wasn't what you think. We met at a conference." She was complicated. Sad. I didn't mean to wreck a home. I didn't even know there was one to wreck. I didn't answer. I poured a drink instead. Then another. The next morning, I drove back to the city with a hangover and a headache I earned by chasing answers to questions I shouldn't have asked in the first place. And yet, the man haunted me. Not because he slept with my wife, but because he apologized. And because part of me, ashamed, shriveled, bitter, wanted to believe him. I brought it up to Carly over coffee. "Do you think people can do terrible things and still be decent?" She gave me that look only daughters can give their fathers, half compassion, half disappointment. "I think people are a mess," she said. "But yeah, sometimes. Even Mom." She stirred her coffee longer than necessary. "She screwed up, Dad. Big time. But she's still my mom. Fair." Everything was still tangled. Nothing could be just one thing. Not anymore. And then came the memory. It hit me while I was brushing my teeth. The kind of mundane moment where your brain slips past defenses and yanks open the wrong drawer. A year ago, Elaine had gone to visit her sister for 3 days. She came back with a new scarf and a lightness I chalked up to wine and gossip. But that scarf. I remember it now, vividly. Red, with little golden leaves. She left it on the back of a chair, forgot it, like a memento from a weekend she wanted to preserve. I'd seen that scarf again framed, blurry, in one of Greg's photos. Around her neck as she stood outside the Thai restaurant, lips on a stranger. It hadn't started recently. It had roots. That made it worse, somehow. A calculated betrayal wears a different mask than a spontaneous one. I found myself calling her. The phone rang 6 times before she picked up. "Stephen, I got an email," I said. "From him." She sighed, and for a second I could hear her lips parting, then pressing together again. "I didn't tell him the truth. About you. About us." "Why?" "Because I wanted something that wasn't stained." That one word, stained, clung to me. As if our marriage had become laundry she didn't want to bother saving. "We could have fixed it," I said. "No. You could have patched it." But I was already gone. There it was. The postscript nobody asked for. "Did you love him?" "No," she said. "But I wanted to." I hung up. Not out of anger, out of finality. Like closing a book halfway through the last chapter because you already know how it ends. The next day, I took the framed wedding photo down from the living room wall. I didn't throw it away. Just put it in the attic, in a box labeled Before. Because that's what it was now. Before. There's a specific silence that lives in a house after divorce papers are filed. It doesn't arrive all at once. It seeps in, into drawers, into door frames, into the gaps between footsteps. It sounds like old songs you used to dance to in the kitchen. Like the pause after your daughter says, "Tell Mom I said hi," then remembers. I started hearing Elaine everywhere. Not her voice, exactly, but her absence. I'd reach for the coffee filters and instinctively pull out the hazelnut she liked. I kept checking the mailbox like she might still send me a note. And in the back of my closet, behind the winter coats, I found the Christmas gift I'd bought her last year and forgotten to give. A hardcover of the poetry she used to read in college, with a ribbon bookmark already placed on a page I thought she'd love. I burned it in the fireplace. Dramatic? Maybe. But closure never comes gift-wrapped. Sometimes you have to light the match. The next week, Carly came over to help clear out her stuff. She meant her mom's, but she couldn't quite say the word. Boxes, scarves, old planners, books she never finished. I kept a few things, the black and white photo of her at 22 in Rome, the ceramic lamp we both liked, the cookbooks with our notes in the margins. "What are you going to do with all this space?" Carly asked, folding the last of the sweaters. "Probably leave it empty for a while. Maybe forever." She gave me a look. "You can't live in a museum, Dad." "Why not? People pay good money to visit dead things." We laughed. Sort of. Then, a voicemail. Late that night. Elaine's voice, measured, controlled, but strained. "Stephen, I need to tell you something. Not about us. You'll probably hate me more after this. But you deserve to know. Call me back. Please." I didn't. Not for 3 days. But curiosity is a chronic illness, and eventually, I gave in. She answered on the second ring. "Hi. I'm calling. Talk." There was a pause. I could hear her exhale, the way she always did when she was about to say something ugly and didn't know how to soften it. "I'm not proud of this," she began. And it wasn't the plan. But I'm pregnant. I sat down slowly, the way you do when your legs forget their purpose. "With us?" "Yes." "Colin." Silence. I let it stretch because anything I said would be wrong. Or worse, true. "I didn't want to tell you," she continued. "But I thought it would be worse if you found out some other way. Carly doesn't know." I closed my eyes. Images flooded in, the hotel, the scarf, the wine glasses, her smirk when I walked in. "How far along?" 8 weeks. I did the math. The hotel, the Thai restaurant, the work conference. It all lined up like a trail of receipts to a destination I never wanted. "What do you want me to say, Elaine? Congratulations?" "No, I don't want anything. You should know. I don't expect forgiveness." "Good," I said, voice calm, foreign. "Because there isn't any." We ended the call. No promises. No closure. Just the cold thud of a door clicking shut, one I would never open again. That night, I stared at our wedding album. Not to mourn. To study. Like a detective combing a crime scene for missed clues. Her smile in those early photos, was it real? Did it fade slowly or vanish overnight? Did I miss the moment the love expired? Then I saw it. A photo I hadn't noticed in years. Elaine, laughing at something off camera. Me, beside her, looking at her instead of the lens. That was the last time I remembered feeling utterly sure of her. Now she was carrying someone else's child. Not just betrayal, but legacy. Proof. A future built from the rubble of my past. And I had silence. Paperwork. Smoke. The next morning, I packed a small bag. Drove north. No destination. Just away. Through pine trees and winding roads. I let the radio hum static and let the wind talk louder than my thoughts. Stopped at a diner. Coffee and eggs. The waitress smiled like people used to. "Passing through?" she asked. Something like that. And I realized I had no idea what came next. Not a clue. But for the first time, that didn't feel like drowning. It felt like breath. I didn't cry for Elaine. Not when she told me she was pregnant, not when she moved out, and not when the divorce was finalized and a board clerk stamped our life into the archives. But I did cry once, unexpectedly, pathetically, while folding laundry. It was one of her t-shirts. Old, soft, faded with time and memory. I hadn't noticed it before. Maybe it hid itself, waiting for a moment when my hands were too tired to keep pretending. I held it for a minute, then sat on the edge of the bed, pressing it to my face like a fool. It didn't smell like her anymore, just detergent. but it brought the ghost of her anyway. There's nothing noble about heartbreak. It's messy, embarrassing, and mundane. People imagine it's thunder and lightning. No, it's dryer lint and lukewarm takeout and the sound of your own breathing after midnight. And yet, we survive it. Carly came home for spring break. She didn't ask about Elaine. We circled around the topic like dancers around an open flame. One night, she said it plainly. She's seeing someone. I think it's him. I didn't answer. Not because I didn't care, but because I'd already burned the photograph in my mind. Elaine, belly swelling, him beside her. A future I was no longer written into. Carly continued, cautiously. She's not the same, you know. She seems scared. She should be, I said. Fear is the tax for betrayal. Carly flinched. She's still my mom. And I'm still your father. She said you'd hate her forever. I don't. Not forever. But long enough. We didn't talk about it again. That summer, I finally did what I'd promised. I cleared out the attic. Elaine's books, her college papers, a few old letters she'd once written me when we were still tethered to passion. I read the first few lines of one, something about how I made her feel seen. I couldn't finish it. I donated the books, shredded the letters. Some ghosts deserve no shrine. Then, the letter came. Handwritten. No return address. But the slant of her handwriting was unmistakable. I almost didn't open it. But curiosity, again. My lifelong defect. Stephen. I won't reach out again. I promised myself that. I only wanted to say thank you for how you left. You could have destroyed me, publicly, legally, emotionally. You didn't. You just walked away. That was the cleanest lie. That you were okay. I'm not writing to apologize. That ship sunk long ago. I just want you to know, I never hated you. Not even at the end. I think I hated myself more. The baby is a boy. I don't expect you to care. But I wanted you to know his name. It's Stephen. Not to replace you, but because I needed a reminder of who I once was and what I lost. I hope, someday, you find someone who doesn't rewrite you out of your own story. B. I read the letter twice. Then I folded it neatly and put it in the same box as the signed divorce papers. I didn't scream, didn't curse. I just sat there, stunned by the one thing I hadn't anticipated. She'd named him after me. The gesture should have meant something, but it didn't. Not really. Naming a child doesn't erase betrayal. It only memorializes it. Still, I didn't burn the letter. I let it stay. Weeks passed. I started sleeping through the night again. Ate dinner at the table. Bought new sheets. Then one afternoon, I met a woman at the bookstore. Her name was Marie. She was buying a copy of the same poetry book I'd once burned. We laughed about it. Ended up getting coffee. I didn't tell her my story. Not all of it. Just the Cliff Notes version. Divorced. Not recent, not raw. Just resolved. She nodded. Same. We didn't make plans. Just smiled and left it open. I drove home feeling something unfamiliar. Not hope, but possibility. Elaine will live her life. Raise a boy named Stephen. Maybe she'll tell him about me someday. Maybe not. But me, I've stopped looking in the rearview mirror. Some endings don't need a moral. Just distance. It's been 14 months. The leaves are back on the trees outside the lake house, same as they were that last summer I spent alone, drinking bourbon on the porch and trying to convince myself I didn't miss her anymore. I do. Not her. What we were. The version of me who believed in us. That guy had a simpler heart. Marie's here now. Not living with me. Just visiting. She brings her own coffee and keeps a toothbrush in the medicine cabinet. She doesn't ask questions I can't answer. We sit in silence more than we speak, and somehow that's enough. She saw the photo once, Elaine and I, on the dock, smiling with the kind of naive permanence people only manage in the early chapters. Marie didn't ask who the woman was. She just looked, nodded once, and walked away. She understands more than I say. Carly visits less now. She has a life in another city, job, friends, a guy she thinks might be the one. I'm happy for her. And I don't ask questions, either. I've learned how easily love can turn into obligation if you push too hard. Elaine sent a Christmas card. Photo of the baby, Stephen. Chubby, grinning, utterly innocent. There was a note inside, 2 lines. He's walking now. Carly came to visit. I told him your name. I didn't reply. Not because I'm angry, but because that part of me is sealed off. Like a wing in an old house, memories inside, door locked from both sides. Marie asked once if I believed in closure. I told her no. I believe in adjustment. You learn to live with the echoes. You build a life in the spaces betrayal couldn't touch. You let the silence be what it is, not an enemy, not a friend. Just weather. You live through it. And if you're lucky, like I was, someone walks into your life with warm hands and no demands, and you find yourself smiling for no reason again. I don't believe in fresh starts, but I believe in continued chapters. This is one, and maybe the last, or maybe not. Thanks for sticking around and listening to my story. And if you haven't already, be sure to subscribe and click the bell so you don't miss more true life stories just like this one.